Hi, thanks for tuning in to the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast, brought to you by CR Gutters and A Advanced Septic Services. My name's Galen,
I'm Joe.
and we're coming at you from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast, brought to you by A Advanced Services and CR Gutters. My name's Galen,
I'm Joe.
and we're coming at you from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. Thanks for watching us and joining us today. Joe, can you give, for our new listeners and viewers, can you give a quick introduction of how our podcast came to be, please?
Sure. So it all started as a Facebook group page. We wanted to bring businesses together to be able to communicate with one another, ask questions, share tips, and really just engage businesses. From that being that we're in the marketing industry, we get a lot of questions, not just related to business. I mean, not just related to marketing, but business questions. So a lot of times the best way to answer those questions is just to bring on different guest speakers to talk about different topics, all related to business. And the guests always share tips. So hopefully our audience can take one or two of those nuggets and go apply it that day.
Awesome. So for our 30th episode already, Joe, can you give a quick introduction to our guest, please?
I'm excited for this one because actually Lisa found us. So she is the one of the owners at Wasatch CPA Services in beautiful Utah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us today. So
Thanks for having me here.
Q Image One. So Joe, we're really excited about our hashtag Valor Cares initiative and kind of our generosity. Can you give some quick details on what that's all about, please?
Yeah. So the Valor Cares started during COVID. We wanted a way to give back to businesses, not just in Washington State, but really across the country. And the way that we found that we can do that is to give away a free website build. So we started out giving away one website build every single month. People could go to our website, the valormarketingllc.com/Valor Cares, and they can apply. Now we've actually increased that to, we're now going to be giving away 4 website builds every single month. So now we just want to crank it up and kind of help as many people as we can.
Right. We believe that the website's kind of your hub of your internet activity. So when everything looks good online on your website where people are directed, you have it on your business card, everywhere else, social media, everything should match. So we'll share more details on that. Also, I just want to share, we'll share a recap. So we just hosted a Google workshop, a growth Google workshop with Carissa Saint Laurent. Use YouTube to grow your business, which if you message us, we could share the presentation deck. But what was one of your big takeaways from our webinar?
I should have been prepared for this one. I mean, I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes. There isn't like one specific thing that I learned. It's just I have a lot of notes, and it's going to help me. I mean, if you haven't messaged us, we'll send you the slide deck. It's like 50 pages, some videos. It's really detailed. Walks you through how to set up the YouTube channel, how to maximize your channel. But there were a couple tips in there that if you message us, we can send you as well as a teaser. Message us. But
job.
I'm trying. But it's just like the biggest thing was getting your YouTube channel art to the right size.
Yeah, and my big takeaway was there's over 7 billion people on the planet. There are over 2 billion YouTube users. So think on that, and 1 billion hours of YouTube consumed a month. So you talk about business and opportunity. It's not just for young people, but if your business is out there, it's a great engagement tool to get some good content out there.
Absolutely. It's good for SEO purposes as well.
Right. So Q Image 3. Now we come to the part of our podcast, our A Advanced Septic Pump You Up quote of the day. So there's 2 quotes, and I wanted to quote something from Tony Hsieh, the recently passed former founder of Zappos. It's a cool story, they got bought, I think, in 2009 by Amazon for like $1.2 billion. But the way they approached that industry was different. So this first quote is something that resonated with me in honor of him. People may not remember exactly what you did or said, but they always remember how you made them feel. And that's what matters the most. So especially in light of today, this has been a really challenging year. We like to try to differentiate ourselves by the way we make people feel. We're not like any other internet marketing company. but we're really kind of relationship focused, and I think that pretty much hits it on the head. So yeah, what's your thought on that, Joe?
Yeah, it's just being like how you make them feel to me is also how you being honest with people.
Mm-hmm.
So just if you're always honest with people, then that's going to give them good, warm, and good feelies, whatever, and then they're going to remember you.
Right. And then the Q image 4, the second Advanced Septic Pump You Up quote of the day. Zappos is a customer service company that just happens to sell shoes, by Tony Hsieh. And why that resonated with me is over these past couple of years, Joe, I almost feel like we just try to help businesses, and then we happen to sell internet marketing.
Yep.
Our partnership with Google, our Growth Google partnership, we're really big on educating.
Yep.
Like 80% of what we do is like just education without charging anyone. And then, the giver's gain mentality. Eventually we'll find someone who wants to work with us. So,
right.
Which goes into kind of how aggressive and generous our Valor Cares offering has kind of been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lisa, do you have a thought on any of those two quotes we shared?
Yeah, I really like both of those. We're in the tax business, so it's really hard. Initially, no one wants to do business with us. If the IRS closed up shop, I would immediately have to find another job. But when you can give people that sense of peace, especially when it's something they don't truly understand,
right.
You're giving them that peace, you're giving them that, and you're answering their questions. So there's a lot to be said for that, how you made them feel. That is really that you give them that sense of comfort. That really is what people want, because we can't understand everything about our businesses. So it's nice to know that we've selected good professionals to work with who give us that.
Especially in the tax industry. I mean, your laws change every single year. So you have to, and of course you're not given a huge leeway of mid-year, how things are changing. It's usually at the very end of the year, you get what the updates are. Now you got to go learn them real quick, figure them out, so that way you can offer that peace of mind to your clients.
Yeah. And we truly believe in the power of partnership. We're not experts. So, if you have tax questions, reach out to Lisa. We're kind of teasing what we're going to talk about. But especially this kind of year, a lot of changes, people work in different ways. I'm sure they could use some of your advice.
Especially with your PPP loans or PPE loans and small business loans, and whether it's going to be taxed or not, or where you got to pay taxes on it or not. Some interesting things coming up.
Yeah.
So Q image 5. Now we come to the point of our podcast, our CR Gutters Did You Know segment. So Q image 6. So this is a fact that Lisa shared with us. So IRS audit rates. Everyone hates the A word, audit, right? So in 2018, 1.4% of sole proprietors were audited. So not bad, but you don't want to be that 1.5 out of 100. And then for S Corp's audit rate was 0.01%. The average audit rate is 0.6%. So have you seen, like over the past couple of years, that increase or pretty much stay the same?
Audits have actually dropped a lot in the last at least 20 years. They were really high in the 80s. And so a lot of the fear that surrounds that, especially in the older generations, comes from the audit rates of the 80s prior to the 86 tax law changes. So then this number here comes out of the IRS audit book. They have to release their numbers. And then these numbers have actually dropped quite a bit, but there are other levels, like it's not a full audit. There will be letters, there will be a paper review, stuff like that. It's still not very high, but with the electronic filing age, there's actually a lot of things that either put you into the flagged or not flagged category. So it usually comes down to how you file your electronic return.
Awesome. So it does mean that you still need a tax professional to do things correctly.
Actually, more so than ever, because it's kind of like you can click the wrong button really easily. But then also the other thing is that those softwares, the TurboTax of the world, especially when you get into business taxes, they're not in the market of getting people audited. They like to show at the end, no one gets audited when you use our software. It's because they don't let you take the deductions. And so you overpay. It's pretty much how it works. They're just like, nope, that's too much risk. And then they just kick you out.
Right. I've been guilty of clicking the wrong button, like hitting buy now when I didn't mean to. Or maybe I did mean to, but, I told my wife, oh, that was accidental. Anyway, we'll move on. Q image 7. So tax myths. So I found an article online and just wanted to shoot some things out just so our audience could kind of hear some things. So this myth, all startup costs should immediately be deducted. So why is that a myth?
Honestly, it really has to do with where your net income is at. As far as if you go into business and you're like, I've spent all this money building software, or I'm development, I'm all R&D, I haven't actually sold anything yet. Well, why would you want to be running up your debt level rather than saving it for the year where you're actually going to start selling stuff? Especially if you plan on selling, there's recapture. This is where an accountant can help you decide, okay, where are we at? How much do we want to spend? And if you quit a job and are now living off of your savings to invest money in your business, you don't need a bigger loss on that business in order to make your taxes look better. They're already going to be low. So you might as well save them and deduct them over a normal amount.
Right.
Now, if you just wanted Section 179, just so you don't have to worry about them and track them, you can do that too. So I think there's just a point at which if you get your taxable personal income down to zero, and then all you have is more loss, is just hanging out there, that's not smart. Yeah, you want to keep it hanging around for another year.
Good to know. Cue image 8. Excuse me. I don't have to pay my taxes on money made online. So more people are doing stuff online, selling. What is your thought to that? Because that relates to a lot of our audience.
That is false. That has always been false. If you have cash, if you have Venmo, if you have PayPal, if you barter and trade with the guy next door for a good that your business is in that business is selling, it is taxable income. You might have a taxable expense to go with it in the form of trade or something, but no matter how you make it, you have to track it. And I love when people are like, oh, I've got Venmo and I've got this and I've got that, and Cash App and all this stuff. And I'm like, guess what you're doing? You're exporting all of your transactions into Excel and sending them to me, and I'm going to record that. And it gets messy and it gets expensive, but it is true that it is taxable. That's
awesome. So this one, cue image 9. So home office deductions increase the risk of an audit. So more people are the WFH, work from home people, right? Even myself, I'm going to put French doors on a room to enclose it so I can get some privacy during work. What is your thought on that? Home office deductions.
It actually is. Home office is a little bit more of a trigger for audit. So is mileage, and then so is meals and entertainment, which entertainment's not deductible anymore. So don't get crazy on your taxes. The reason why it is mostly because the form isn't easy to fill out, and people don't really understand what they're doing. They're like, I can deduct my home office. So I put all my utilities on my expense sheet, and I put all of my rent payments or my mortgage payment right as an expense of my business. That's not how the form works. And so you have to figure out a component of it. You have to calculate it. Now, if you're using a TurboTax, this is where it's going to probably deny, kick it out, not going to give you the right percentage. This is where a professional really helps you. Now, if you're a formed organization, S Corp, partnership, and you can't really easily do a home office because there's no form on that, then you have to figure out how do you set that up properly to paper it so you can pay for your home office accordingly. That's where your professional steps up. So the reality is if you're an individual, you got a W-2, you don't have anything really, business related going on, fine. Or you have a little small hobby business, you're good. Do your own taxes. Once you level up into any sort of business, pay the money and get a professional.
Awesome.
That's
Cue image 10. So I love this one. I want to get your reaction. My accountant holds the responsibility if tax mistakes are made. Not on me.
No. If the numbers that have been provided are not accurate, then that is not the responsibility of the CPA or the EA, which is enrolled agent. The EA designation comes from the IRS, by the way. So if they have told you something specifically, you can deduct that, and you give them the expenses, they put it on the form, you have some kind of verification that the person gave you that information and it's wrong. That is the preparer's fault. But if you put all these numbers in there and we're not exactly clear what they are, you're just like business expense, and the person doesn't validate. You're like, and you've said these are all business expenses. We're like, you're sure there are? Yes, we put them on there. That is not our responsibility. So just because we fill out the form. Now, form being completed correctly is your tax preparer's obligation. And then what they've told you in written. So this is where if you'd like to like have a phone conversation with your CPA and they like to respond by email, a good reason they're paper validating the conversation so that they have some kind of trail.
Okay.
So are there certain apps you recommend? Like I use MileIQ to keep track of my mileage because it separates business and personal. I know my account that I work with has me fill out, there's an app on my phone that I take pictures of all the receipts.
Yep.
I mean, whether it comes from a receipt, whether it's an emailed receipt, I mean, I like that because
you get it documented.
I get it documented and then it's on her end usually. I mean, it's separated for the most part, but I know QuickBook has a thing as well where you take pictures and it uploads to QuickBooks. So I know there's different ones out there. Is there any ones particularly that you recommend?
Any of them are good as long as it's actually, I have some people who just like take a picture, save it to Google Drive. The reason why taking a picture of your receipts is great is because a lot of those, especially the carbon-y type receipts, they fade. And so in the event of an audit, and your audit period can go back up to 3 years. So it's 3 years after your last filed return. So it could be maybe 4 up to 5 years by the time you get around to talking to the IRS. Those forms fade. And so your receipts are now worthless if you don't have a picture of it. The picture trap captures the data. Your bank statements also do a good job because, you know, frequently now when you're using your debit card, it actually says where you bought stuff. It would only be the details of what's on the receipt if you need that. So taking the pictures is great. MileIQ is a good one. Everlance is a great one. If you can print a report, even if you print your Google Calendar and, you know, write down which ones are business or it's kind of clear which are business if you're driving there, then those are all really good ways. Any kind of documentation is good. Keeping it down, something written down on paper. You know, we've even had ways of figuring out mileage logs based on gas receipts from people. So it's not that, it's great to have more information. The apps are good, but whatever you choose, whatever works for you, if it works, use it.
Right. Awesome. So now we come to the portion where we give a more formal introduction of yourself. So Joe, take it away.
Sure. So Lisa, like I said, she reached out to us so that way she was able to share tips with businesses on taxes to help our audience save money. So she has been an owner partner from 2014 to 2016. 2004 to 2016 of a few different bookkeeping and accountants firms. And then she's been a partner at Wasatch CPA Services since 2018. She's a volunteer in the tax assistance at United Way, Utah. And then an interesting stat that I saw that was on her website that to me stood out was a business strategist helping the average client increase profits 30% per year. So everyone, welcome Lisa. And then also with that, I want to learn more about your business strategist helping the average client increase profits by 30% per year. Can you go into a little bit detail on that?
Yeah. So in addition to the tax savings that we provide, we also do CFO services, primarily a lot in the service sector, construction companies, any kind of tradesmen, or like in your case, websites, stuff like that. A lot of the time, we're very good at the skill we take on doing. You could be great at software and coding and websites and everything like that, but you may not be great at your business side. This is why we all start listening to podcasts and we start going to networking events because there's stuff we don't quite understand and we're hoping for that. In the CFO realm, we get into looking at, okay, what are your numbers really telling you? So you are underbidding jobs. You're like, oh, I'm making $150 an hour. But then it turns out after we're all done, no, you're not. You're making 45. I'm like, why did that happen? You're spending more time than you think you do because you're not tracking your time. Or you're overspending. Construction is very much rife for overspending on jobs. They don't realize that they estimated this much when they bid the job, and now the marketing is the materials are just way overpriced, or they bought too much, or there was waste, or frequently fraud. If you're not watching them, stuff just walks off the job. It's kind of surprising how it happens. Well, then you turn around and we're looking at labor, and the labor they're like, oh, it's only going to take this long to do the job, and I'm like, that's the owner saying that. That's not how much his crew is doing, and now he's not really looking at how much they're spending doing it. So a lot of your savings can come from managing labor, managing materials. Everyone's like, well, I don't need to buy this one little tiny thing. A lot of times that little stuff is just details. They're not really what's driving your bottom line. It's going to be how much you're bidding, how much your core costs are, and then how much your labor is. And so if we look at those, we figure out how to tighten it up or just make sure that you're bidding the right amount. A lot of times people are very afraid to actually ask for their value. they don't ask for the right price, and you're like, well, I'm giving them a good deal and they appreciate that. Do they really? Does someone really appreciate an underpriced website? No, they don't. They don't see the value of it. The second it breaks, they're just as mad as if it was a full price website or a full price any other feature. We just have to price ourselves accordingly to what is really the market price. And if that's how much, if a contractor needs to look at it and go, materials, this is real labor, this is my markup, this is how much I price, there's going to always be someone out there who's going to do it cheaper. Let that person do it cheaper. They're not running at the same professional level you are.
Right. Cheaper is not necessarily better.
Yeah. So it's almost more like accounting. Like I'm looking at the numbers, and then it gets a little bit into like therapy. So a little like coaching, you just get into, okay, we need to just make sure we're pricing ourselves, appropriately.
Awesome. So let's get to know the coach, the therapist behind Lisa a little bit more. So our first question to you, what are some lessons learned as an early entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh, love that. So yeah, I started working with CPAs when I was 19. And that's how I actually found this business. And now 24 years later, I'm still doing it. Well, early entrepreneurship is, I think, like we hear it everywhere, is just kind of embracing who you are. I remember back way before social media and whatever, creating pamphlets, and on the back of them, I put a picture that had a picture of me with my, which was then a puppy, and I put my associate in charge of security. I actually got a client because he liked the picture of the dog. And so he loved dogs, and apparently I'm a good accountant because we both love dogs. It was literally like, it made no sense, his logic on that, but he liked it. He looked at the rest of it because he liked the picture. So my personality, I think, came through. And if you spend any time with me, I have a lot of personality. But I was who I was, and I was trying to always be very good at what I did. So I was early on, became an enrolled agent. Early on, spending a lot of time teaching myself how to use QuickBooks Desktop, how to use all the software, how to do hard tax returns, reading lots of IRS documents and stuff. Just being good at what I did, not trying to just be, getting the job done. So when I became really good at what I was doing, that came through.
Nice.
Awesome.
So what is being in practice and being in business for yourself, what has been the best piece of advice you've been given?
It's funny, is I've gotten so much good advice, and I think that changes over the years. If a lot of other people are doing it, there's probably, where there's smoke, there's fire. So a lot of people listen to podcasts. A lot of people read self-help books. Those are all really good. I think one of the best pieces of advice I got wasn't actually advice. It was, I did government accounting for a period, and I'm sitting in a meeting and I'm trying to explain the financials, and this one gentleman doesn't understand. And so it's not uncommon to have a client who doesn't completely understand the numbers. But this particular person is very combative, is very argumentative, and I was just trying to explain it. We were not going to get there. And he got to the point of being very rude and belligerent. And so we just kind of like, okay, let's table the conversation. We'll come back to it. He actually sent me a I'm sorry card, basically is what he said. He said, I was rude, I was mean, I was wrong. And then it was like, so the thing I learned was never be afraid to own where I was at. So one, I don't like to use absolutes. So I don't go in and like try to just completely be like, I am right. There's always room for me to be wrong, always room for me to find more information. But then also just be very honest about if I was wrong or if I needed to, explain something different. Just that honesty, I think.
Awesome.
And his humility, I think, was also just a real big part of it.
So since this podcast is a marketing podcast, why is marketing your business important?
There are so many, what you mentioned, 1 billion hours of YouTube out there. There's 328 million. There's just so many people. So you can be great at what you do and you're just lost in that fray. So, and there's nothing that really differentiates us in words. So we have to market ourselves, because there are times where I could have been thinking about needing something very specific all year long, but it leaves my mind. I'm not, paying attention to it. And so I don't go out and hunt it up. But at the minute I'm thinking about it, when it pops into my inbox or it runs across my screen, thank you, Google, for listening intently to my phone. It is one of those things that it just like, okay, it clicks. And then I'm hearing words and I'm seeing all the details that I need to make me want to search further with that particular company. So marketing allows me to continue getting myself in front of people who might want to hear my message at that moment. Do I need to, beat them over the head with it? I personally don't think I do, but when it's the right fit at that moment, it's a good fit.
Awesome. So now we'll transition into text Q image 12, tax tips for small businesses. So there's a lot in our audience, they always like hearing tidbits of information that they could learn. Joe and I ourselves always learn.
Yeah.
What are a couple of things that you could share with our audience for some really important tax tips, or what not to do? What are two or three glaring things that you'd like to share?
Right. I'd say the first one is that I kind of hinted at earlier was it's really cheap insurance. The IRS doesn't audit a lot, but it's really cheap insurance. And it's a whole lot of heartache reduction to get professional tax advice.
Absolutely.
They're like, oh, but I could save like $500 or $700 if I do it myself. Really? Like at the end of the day, that is not your biggest expense line. And so therefore, I'd highly recommend having a professional tax preparer. Even if you want to do your own QuickBooks, even if you want to muddle through all of that, I get that. But tax preparation and asking those questions when stuff comes up. Also, if you have a good tax preparer, and they can get a little pricier, especially the people who are really on top of stuff. When CARES Act and PPP loans and EIDL loans all started hitting, we actually pay for a very expensive training program that is dissecting all of this, is coming out with all the details, and is basically giving me all the information literally on the second day. We had 45 conversations in businesses that we helped in the first 30 days after those came out, just because there was just so much. One, there's so much information. It's changing daily. They passed 4 different laws in 30 days. And so all those things were something that, a CPA is going to do. And I'm also not even a CPA and knows all kinds of stuff. You come at me with e-commerce, you come at me with SaaS. Those aren't things I'm going to do. That's not my wheelhouse. So I can only be good at my area. And then, so an individual trying to muddle through that on their own, it's just a lot of heartache to save a little bit of dollars.
Nice. So what about some tax tips for businesses? I know we covered vehicle mileage. I know we covered home office. Talk about meals. I know that's very important for people who are just going out lunch every single day and trying to write it off. Yeah.
So the law changed with the Trump Tax Act. It's actually called the ACA, or not ACA. I forget what they call it. TCJA, I think it is. So the entertainment basically became a non-deductible expense. So if you are buying tickets to a game, even if you go with the client or whatever, entertainment is not a deductible item. So now meals, mostly you need to have your client sitting there with you when you're having your meal for it to really be deductible. You need to have needed to bring the food to your employees because they couldn't leave. It's not convenient for them to COVID. You couldn't, you were feeding them on site because they couldn't go to restaurants or whatever. So there was a reason why you had to bring the food in, but you can't just be swinging through the drive-through or deciding to go out to a meal and you're we talked about business. There was a little bit too much fudgeability, so they got weird on the meals. Also, when you're looking at a percentage of, if you do a lot of volume, you have a lot of money you expend, and your meals is maybe $1,000, but we're talking about 1,000 out of 250,000. That's not a big deal. If you're a smaller business and you maybe only have $40,000 of expenses and 2,500 of it is meals, that ratio puts you into why we need to look at this category. So yeah, you need to be aware of what it is. You also might want to write on that receipt before you snap the picture who you're eating with, what you were talking about. Those things help.
Awesome. That's good stuff to know. So we'll have your information. There may be some people in the audience who could reach out to you, via email or phone. Again,
happy to answer.
Thanks for reaching out and coming on. It's not the sexiest topic talking about taxes, but when you think of the end of the year, people are so looking forward to 2021, but they'll eventually have to figure out and how to expense this crazy of a year. So a tax person is someone you should have in your portfolio or your Rolodex to contact.
I mean,
at
it's something
least.
that I recommend to any business out there. Don't do it yourself. Hire a professional. The last thing you want to do is have to go through an audit.
Right.
Yeah, well, and then also if you're getting close to $100,000 net income, there's actually a lot of tax planning businesses don't think to do, and some of it needs to be done before the end of the year. So this would be a time to find a good tax planner and talk about changes you need to make before the year ends.
Awesome. So if you guys need, we have referrals for local people if someone demands someone local, but we'll have Lisa's information. Again, thanks for coming on. Q image 13. So is your website ready to perform? We're so big on websites. If you don't know you need a new one or not, one thing that we're able to provide is a website audit. So a message us, and it takes us probably 10, 15 minutes to do one. We'll get it back to you, and it provides a lot of cool information. Whether you hire us or not, you could take it to your web person just to see how Google views your website, because part of it is you should get everything set up right.
Absolutely.
But closing in on Q image 1, which goes into our Valor Cares. So if you run a website audit, you need a new website, and you qualify, Joe, remind our listeners and viewers all about Valor Cares.
Yep. So if you need a new website, your website sucks, or your friend's mother's brother built it 10 years ago and you just don't have access to it, great. You could go to valormarketingllc.com/Valor Cares and submit your business. And like I said, we've increased it from 1 giveaway to 4 giveaways a month.
Right. And that's all around the country, all around the world, really. I got this morning coming in, I had someone from Nebraska fill an application, talk to someone in Oklahoma. So wherever you are in the world, come at us if we could help you. So we'd
Absolutely.
love to do that. Again, thank you, Lisa, for jumping on our podcast. We'd love to have you again sometime, or if you know someone else who'd be a good guest, we appreciate you reaching out. On behalf of our sponsors, Advanced Septic Services and CR Gutters, my name is Galen.
I'm Joe.
And we are coming at you from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Take care. We'll see you again soon.